TBTM.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Hey Dummies. My name is Andrew and I will be your dummy today. Thanks for tuning in. This, of course, is the newsletter video where Luke and I will answer your questions, whatever they may be. I got a note here from Megan who says, is there a book or any piece of media/culture that makes you wish you had amnesia so that you could experience it again for the first time? I'll reread my favorites from time to time, but nothing hits quite like the first time. My go-tos are Black Holes and Time Warps by Kip Thorne and The Brothers K by David James Duncan. It's a great question, Megan, and in all seriousness, I have been thinking about it quite a bit. And unfortunately, the answer is no. Let me explain. So the thing is, your question is predicated on the idea that I have a working brain. And the thing is, I don't. You say here, gee, it's a piece of media, a book or a movie or a record or something that you love so much that you wish you had amnesia so you could hear it again for the first time. But the problem is, and I recognized this about myself a long, long time ago, I have such an inability to remember. I was going to say the details of things, but in many cases, even the broad strokes of things, that I am walking around the world like a goldfish, forgetting everything. So a lot of the books that I might go back to read, I've read them so long ago that I actually don't remember much about them at all. And so it almost is like reading them again for the first time. And I was really racking my brain. I've been thinking a lot lately about what my next book is going to be. And this is another embarrassing admission, but something I've talked about on the show, so why not raise it here again? But I have been essentially reading the same book for like over a year now. Now, I'm a pretty slow reader, but I still like to read. And I used to go through books, not if not quickly. I was certainly had a hunger to go through a lot of books now, and I would, I don't know, put away more than, let's say, one a year. But I don't have to get into the whole storyline, but I ended up with a copy of an abridged version of The Count of Monte Cristo. The abridged version was still pretty long. I wanted to read it on my phone, so I downloaded the unabridged version, and I have been reading that. It turns out the unabridged version is incredibly long. It's about 3 times, I think, the length of the book that I had bought or that I had found. And so and also I had no context for it, and the story gets a little confusing because the author purposely tries to kind of throw the reader off for chunks of it before he brings you back around. So it was a complicated read from an era I don't read much, in a language I don't read much, translated to the English, of course. And I am now finally getting near the end of that book. I've got, on the app, it says I'm 92% of the way there, and everything is clicking now, and I'll probably finish it this weekend. And so I've been thinking, what should I read next? I'm somebody who usually reads fiction. I'm not a big nonfiction kind of person, although there are some nonfiction books that are sort of on my list. But I've also been wondering, do I go back to a book that I used to love but don't remember much about, or that I never maybe fully understood and want to go back? And one thing that's been on my mind lately is The Foundation, that Isaac Asimov trilogy. I'm pretty sure it's just a trilogy, or at least the 3 books are the main. Yeah, it's. I'll confidently say it. I'm pretty sure that's a trilogy, and I'm pretty sure I completed it at one point, or at least the first 2 books. But I feel like I kind of got bogged down in it, and now I want to go back and read it with fresh eyes because they're not very long books, but I sort of think important. And Genevieve has been actually referencing them kind of coincidentally recently, so I'm like, yeah, I should go back and read those. But the thing is, my brain is so bad, it is going to be like reading it for the first time practically. And then I started thinking about your question. I'm like, okay, well, don't just focus on books. What about movies? And it's kind of the same thing with movies. Like movies I love to go back and rewatch them because I pick up on more and more things, and there's a joy in rewatching a movie. And again, because I don't remember the details all that well, I don't have to wait that long in between viewings. And then I started thinking about music, and I thought this was sort of an interesting story. While my answer to even the music side of things is still no, I can't think of anything that I wish I had amnesia so I could go back and listen to for the first time. I was really thinking about it because a buddy of mine, I ran into him a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about music, and I told him how I was kind of getting kind of back into the Talking Heads, or like the Talking Heads was a band that I liked but never went deep into their catalog, sort of. And this guy that I know, he's about 10 years older than me, so he was pretty deep into the Talking Heads when they were still releasing things. Like maybe he's a little bit older than 10 years older than me, but all of that is to say, when the Talking Heads were kind of in their heyday in the late 70s and early 80s, he was experiencing that music for the first time and has carried that love and passion of the Talking Heads with him throughout his life. And he encouraged me to get their second record because I had been really loving their first record. And their second record, I think, is called More Songs About Buildings and Food, or something very close to that. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really know that record, and I don't know that many songs off of it. And so I actually went out and I bought it. You'll probably recognize this album cover. I think it's a pretty famous album cover. It doesn't even have the name on it, but I'm pretty sure it's More Songs About Buildings and Food. But anyway, I saw my buddy again the following week, and I'm like, hey, I bought the record that you were telling me about, and I've been listening to it, and it's interesting to hear this for the very first time. It's fun and exciting. And he got this real wistful look on his face, and he just said, oh, I can't even imagine listening to that album for the very first time again. And I think that his little moment there captured exactly what you're trying to capture here, Megan. And for me, I'm enjoying listening to this. But if I go back to an album that I truly loved, or even an album that I remember the joy of discovery around, like I was thinking about Nirvana, right? Like I was thinking like, okay, I fell in love with Nirvana. It was one of the few contemporary bands that I listened to when I was young. And I remember, of course, Nevermind was huge. That was their breakout record. And then people saying, well, if you like that, go back and listen to their first record. It's much more like, it's a little bit more raw, a little bit more crunchy. Or crunchy is the wrong word, but a little bit more raw, a little bit more raucous. And it's called Bleach. And I was thinking, oh, man, yeah, the first time I heard Bleach, I think it just blew my mind. But I don't wish I had amnesia there, because when I heard it, it was when I was supposed to hear it. I don't mean that in a hippy-dippy way. I mean, like, it was the 90s. I was young. It was for me then. And I don't wish that I could hear those sounds for the first time when on the rare occasion that I put that record on, I listened to it with all of the memories that come along with it, and the joy that comes along with that too. So I guess the answer to your question is no, but it did get me to reflect a lot on things. I was thinking, are there any movies that I could go back and watch again for the very first time? And every movie I thought of, I was like, no, I'd just like to rewatch that again and pick up on more stuff. So anyway, I appreciate, though, Megan, that you have a much better working mind than I do. I'm envious of that you can actually, remember things. Must be a luxury. Anyway, I love that question. I really did. And you guys can send me more questions. Andrew@tbtl.net is my email address. If you have any question, in fact, I really need some new questions to freshen things up a bit. So email me, Andrew@tbtl.net. Put Hey Dummies in the subject line so I can kind of keep track of these things. And ask us anything about our lives, about the podcast, about the intersection of our lives and podcasting. All right, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. We will talk to you on Monday. Bye.